YouTube? The doctor is in. Dr. Urias Papers here, coming at you with another commentary on Dungeons and Dragons. And today we are going to be talking about the new DnD Drop spell. It says right there, DnD Drops, D&D Beyond Drops, Tortoise Shell. This is a second level spell usable by Druids, Rangers, and Artificers. We're excited this one. This one is pretty broken. We're going to go over this spell. We're going to talk about a grade for this spell, and then we're going to talk about several uses for this spell. And there is particularly one thing in this spell that I'm going to point out that does make it pretty broken. Okay, so let's get into this. But first, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. If you like this video, hit the like button. If you have any questions or comments, please leave a question or a comment. Don't forget to hit that notification bell. Don't forget to hype this video. And don't forget to share this video. Okay, Tortoise Shell, second level spell. That's the first thing. It's only a second level spell. So that makes it pretty usable by all three of these classes. Even though Ranger and Artificer are half casters, Druid is a full caster. Druids get this at third level. Rangers and Artificers get this at fifth level. So, second level spell, one action time casting, range of touch. That makes this spell pretty broken. And we're going to say why. Because that means you can cast it on others. Verbal and somatic components last for 1 minute with concentration. So there is concentration involved. It is School of Abjuration. This would be so choice and awesome if this were a wizard spell for the Conjuration Wizard, but it is, or the Abjuration Wizard, I'm sorry, Abjuration Wizard, but it is not, and it's a buff. So, it's very simple. You touch a willing creature. I love it already. It's not a personal spell like Shield. You touch a willing creature until the spell ends, which is 1 minute, or concentration ending. The target's skin hardens into a tortoise shell, and the target gains a +3 bonus to armor class. That is massive. If the target moves, the bonus becomes +1 instead until the start of its next turn. +1 is still awesome because bonuses stack in Dungeons and Dragons, and that's still great. That means you're eking out another +1 in addition to all the other stuff that you might have on this. But a +3 is great. Now, it's Druids, Rangers, and Artificers again. Ranger, not my favorite class. And you do need to get to 5th level to use this. Artificer, also not my favorite class. You do need to get to 5th level with this. But Druid, we can do 3 levels of dip into Druid and get this spell and have many ways of casting that spell. So, just because of all the shenanigans that I'm going to talk about doing with the spell, and just for the mere fact that the spell is touch and gives just a generic bonus to armor class on top of all the other bonuses to armor class that you can get, we're not going to give this an S tier. So if we're going to give this an A, if we go through our reasons for doing different grades, the things that I look at are, is this spell easy to cast? Yes. It's one action. You can cast it on others. That's pretty easy. Am I going to use this spell every round? Absolutely. I want to use this on myself if I'm a tank, or I want to cast this on the tank, or make sure the tank has a way to cast it on themselves. So that's 2. 3, is it part of a build? Absolutely, this is going to be part of a build. Totally part of a tank AC build. And 4, is it going to have a major impact on the party in combat? Yes. We are altering the chance to hit if we're not moving by 15%, and if we move by 5%. That's what that +3 and +1 represent. So we're giving this an A. So that also means, let's take a look at a few of these classes that can cast this and what I think might be good for these. Here is the Artificer. Now, the Artificer is not an AC heavy class except for the Armorer. So they start out with light and medium armor and shields. That's another important one. Another important part of this, and we're going to talk about this, but I'm going to point this particular power out. You can't make what I'm looking for, but you can make this thing, this level 11, but you do have to take 11 levels of Artificer, this spell storing item, which allows you to choose a 1, 2, or 3rd level Artificer spell, 2nd level, so we can do it. We can stick it in there, and we can give it out to somebody, and they can cast it on themselves. Which one of the subclasses do I think is good? Obviously, the Armorer, because the Armorer gets training with heavy armor, which means you can get plate mail and a shield. That's really important. So we want to have the most out of our armor class that we can. You know, if you got somebody who's got an armor class of like 12 or 13, putting a +3 on them is not going to do a whole lot. Putting a +1, definitely not going to do a whole lot. But if you got somebody who's got a 21, 22, 23 armor class, stacking this on them is going to make things worse. So we want that heavy armor for the Artificer. The other class is the Druid, and like I said, we would dip into Druid just to be able to cast this spell on a heavy tank. And I do like the Circle of Stars, of course, for this. Just because we get the Starry Form and we get the Chalice. That's always nice. The Archer. There are a few other ones, but I do like that one. And so those are the two classes. I'm not going to talk about Ranger. Ranger is not one of my favorite classes in Dungeons and Dragons. It's pretty, and I'm not going to say worthless, but it's very underpowered in many game systems. So let's talk about this and that coin that the Artificer can use. So these essentially do the same thing. The Ring of Spell Storing is a more powerful version of the Artificer's coin. You can get this very early. There's a lot of places to get this. So remember, this stores up to 5 levels of spells, and that's it. There's no charges. It just stores up to 5 levels of spells. So you could actually have 2 of these spells in it. Any creature can cast a spell of level 1 through 5 into the ring by touching the ring as the spell is cast. So just put the spell in here. You give it to somebody, a creature. That's a very important. Any creature, you give this to a creature, and then they can use it. Done. So you give this to your fighter, who is your tank, or your paladin, who is your tank, and then they can cast Tortoise Shell on themselves. They can be in combat, plunk down, not move, and add 3 to their armor class, which is pretty massive. Now, let's talk about that in conjunction with this. You gain the service of a familiar, a spirit that takes an animal form you choose. La 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 la. The important part is here, another beast that has a challenge rating of 0. It appears in an unoccupied space. The familiar has the statistics of the chosen form. Though it is celestial, fey, or fiend instead of beast, your familiar acts independently of you. It obeys your commands. So it is an ally. It cannot, and it has its own initiative, and it acts on its own turn, and it cannot attack. It can't attack. But there isn't any reason why it couldn't use a Ring of Spell Storing, especially if it's a baboon. That is a CR0 beast. Or if it's a flying monkey, which is also a CR0 beast. So these are both beasts. They have hands. You can put a ring on them, and they can use it. Now, let's talk a little bit about armor class and how this kind of breaks armor class. So if we're talking about a druid fighter, where we've dipped 3 levels into druid just to get the spell. Oh, and by the way, before I forget, druids, very important, because Find Familiar is a thing. Druids at 2nd level, and we're only going 3 levels. Druids at 2nd level get Find Familiar. So right here, Wild Companion. So we go through the Druidic, Primal Order, Wild Shape. We go through this little table of beast shapes, and you get down to Wild Companion. There it is. You can summon a nature spirit that assumes the form of an animal form to aid you. As a magic action, you can spend a spell slot or use Wild Shape to cast Find Familiar. without spell components. Again, find familiar. Can make another beast that has a challenge rating of 0. Meaning you can make a baboon or a flying monkey. So you can slap that ring on either one of these, and they now can cast Tortoise Shell because you could put it in there. Or an artificer, out of their artificer features, can cast or make that coin, the spell storing item, and put it in there, and somebody else can use it. It works the same way. So let's talk a little bit about armor class with this then. We're talking plate mail, we're talking shield. That is a 20 right there. 18 plus 2 is 20. If you happen to have, let's say, a +1 plate armor and a +1 shield, that's a 22. And then you add on to that a ring of protection and a cloak of protection, that's a 24. And you add on Tortoise Shell on top of that, and presto changeo, we got a 27 or a 25. If you can figure out a way to cast shield, which isn't hard, because you could take Magic Initiate and do it that way, then you could add 5 for a round to each one of those. So we're talking armor classes anywhere from 30 to 32. That is pretty massive. So all in all, again, we're giving this spell an A, a solid A. This is a solid A. It isn't something that's going to absolutely end combat, but it sure is going to affect it for one of the players, especially one that is a tank that can kind of aggro a lot of stuff and really take hits. All right, that is the video that I have for today. I appreciate everybody tuning in, and I will catch everybody later.